Hello and welcome to the Caring Matters podcast. I'm Liz Tassone, the volunteer host, and I'm here today with Sharon Kowatch. Sharon is a nurse practitioner and she has specialized training in geriatrics, so welcome, Sharon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. And tell us a little bit about your training as a nurse practitioner.
I am a board-certified nurse practitioner. I have a certification in both adult health as well as geriatrics. My education is a Master's of Science in Nursing from the University of Pennsylvania, which of course is in Philadelphia. The University of Pennsylvania is actually well known for its geriatrics program. It's been very prominent in the geriatric scientific community. In 2001, the Center for Integrative Science and Aging, which is at the University of Pennsylvania in their School of Nursing Science, has been supported by the John A. Hartford Foundation and the Hartford Center for Geriatric Nursing Excellence. So it's a particularly excellent program in terms of the science and promoting the science of geriatrics.
Very good. And so your practice here in Cincinnati, you probably see quite a bit of older adults and maybe their caregivers with them.
Correct. I have, in my past, I've worked on a subacute unit, which is a particular inpatient unit, long-term care unit that no longer exists. It existed in the 1990s as a result of what was called DRGs, which was payment to hospitals. And that was primarily geriatric units. And then I've also worked on what are called geriatric research education centers, and in short, the acronym is GREC. And these are centers that were created by the Veterans Administration so that they could prepare for the complex World War II veterans.
Okay.
And I worked on a multidisciplinary team there. My current position is in a family medicine practice where I see adult as well as older individuals.
Okay, very good. So one of the things we wanted to talk about on this particular podcast is, as you know, a lot of caregivers listen to this, and we want to know what would be the best way, from your point of view, what would be a caregiver's best way, or an older adult's best way to prepare for a doctor's visit? They've got one coming up and they want to know, what do I need to do before I make that appointment or before I go to that appointment?
It's a very good question, actually. And I think that most of what I'm going to discuss is pertinent to both the caregiver and or the older individual. I think that there's nothing that in particular that's different whether the older individual has a caregiver attending the office visit. I think the most important thing is that you know your medications. And it is best to write down the list of medications. I think if a patient is someone who needs some assistance, then the caregiver should take the list of medications and compare it directly to the actual medication bottles and to the actual medication label. Because when you bring that list of medication in, oftentimes when it's checked against the list in the doctor's office, the two may not be the same. So the physician or nurse practitioner is making clinical decisions based on what they think the patient is taking, when in reality it may not be what the patient is taking.
Or they've seen another doctor, another specialist or something, and there's an additional drug that the primary care physician may not have.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. So
Right.
I think that that's...
Let me just ask this too. I know a lot of people today take supplements, vitamins, herbal supplements. Would that be also something they should bring in?
It's a really good question, absolutely. There are some supplements which will not interact with their medications. Other supplements will. One of the supplements that was being taken for quite a bit of time was St. John's wort for depression, and it interacts with quite a few medications. And so supplements are very important.
Okay, so so step one, get a giant list of medications that the patient is on, including supplements, vitamins, something like that they're taking on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Or over-the-counter meds. What if somebody's taking aspirin a day or something like that?
Exactly. Over-the-counter medicines, exactly.
Okay, very good. And what else might they do prior to actually coming in that day?
I think if there are any tests that have been done by another physician or ordered by another physician, it is important to have the name of the test and the physician who ordered the test. Because with that information, our office or the primary care office can call the other physician and get that information. Usually the primary care office is the so-called captain of the ship. And without having all the information, it's difficult to sort of drive that ship. So that's another very important thing.
Now, what about the time, like, would you say tests within the past year, tests within the last week? Which one, like, how far back do you have to go? Blood work within so long, what would you say?
Well, that sort of leads into my next point. So I will lead into my next point, and then I will answer that question. I think it's very important that you have regular office visits as an older individual, a minimum of every 6 months. So the answer to your question is since your last office visit.
Okay.
If you have any tests that have been done since your last office visit, if you have any medication changes from another physician, bring all that to the office visit to the primary care physician.
Okay, yeah, very good. And what else might they do to get ready in preparation?
One thing that I think is very important that is not done by older individuals is to schedule a so-called physical. The reason that older individuals do not schedule a physical is because Medicare does not pay for it. And so that is why it is not scheduled. However, from a doctor's office perspective, a physical is a time slot. And what Medicare does cover would be a comprehensive evaluation of chronic medical problems. And the way that you do that is to set that up with the doctor's office as a physical. Not because a physical is going to be done, but because usually there's 45 minutes to 1 hour set aside for a physical appointment. And once a year, that comprehensive appointment needs to be set so that the physician or nurse practitioner has the opportunity to go over each and every medical problem one by one and look at the medications that are being taken for that problem, look at potential side effects, evaluate any tests or studies that have been done in the last year, and to then really look at the big picture.
I'm curious about if I'm a caregiver or older adult calling in, and and I want to make that comprehensive appointment. When I call in, I call it a physical or I call it a comprehensive appointment?
You could call it either one.
Okay, and for billing purposes, they're going to know that it's billed to Medicare as a comprehensive.
Correct.
Like the office staff would know that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
There wouldn't be any problem with calling it a physical when you call it in and then how it's billed. I just don't want people to, get there and find out they owe hundreds of dollars because Medicare doesn't. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So.
Yeah, it is. It's a very important point that you say, in that, what Medicare will not pay for is any sort of routine visit.
I see.
And it is only for scheduling purposes in the office that you're calling it a physical. Because when a patient calls an office and they set up an appointment, the secretary at the front desk will say, "Why are you coming in?" And the reason they're asking that question is to make a determination for a time slot. So, for example, a physical exam gets a longer time slot. A pre-op evaluation would get a longer time slot. I'm just coming in to have my medications checked would get a shorter time slot.
Okay. Oh, that's important to know. I didn't know this. So that's about how they're going to schedule you in the books and how much time you can take up. Okay. So you would suggest doing that at least can you do that every 6 months?
I would do the comprehensive evaluation every 12 months.
Okay. So
And
once
then-
a year, the comprehensive thing.
Correct. And then 6 months later would just be a recheck halfway through the year.
Okay. And you find that to be really important
It's very, very important because that is how you have the opportunity to look at the big picture when the patient is well.
Okay.
So the other office visits are only going to be for sick visits.
Okay. Okay.
And you need the opportunity because of multiple medications, side effects, change in condition, change in activities of daily living. So you need an opportunity to sort of look at the big picture.
Okay. So let me just recap. We're going to come in with a list of our medications, and including over-the-counter and vitamins and supplements. We're going to have a list or know the tests that other physicians have run in the since we've last visited.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to schedule at least once a year a more comprehensive look so that the physician or nurse practitioner has more time set aside in the scheduling for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good.
There's one other point that I want to make, and that is when you go to see your physician, most everyone recommends that you go in with a list of items to address. That list of items to address needs to be brought to the comprehensive office visit. Because that's the time when you sit down and you're going over everything comprehensively.
And the schedule has been slotted to allow for that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I think it's important that that point also be made.
Okay, very good. Well, this is wonderful information, Sharon.
Good.
Thank you
Good.
so much for sharing this.
You're quite welcome.
Again, I want to thank our guest, Sharon Kowatch, who is a nurse practitioner with specialty training in geriatrics, for being with us today. I also want to thank our sponsors, which are Vitas Hospice, Hillebrand Home Health, Home Care by Blackstone, Family Bridges Home Care, Lifespan, and Bailey. I'm Liz Tassone. Thank you for listening, and always remember that caring matters.